All right. Well, now that people have trickled in and it's a couple of minutes after, let's go ahead and get started. So first, I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight. We know that it's not easy and schedules are packed, and quite frankly, 7 o'clock in the evening is not an ideal time, but there's never an ideal time. So we just wanted to thank you so much for making the time to be here. Second, I wanted to thank our incredible speakers. So again, let's go ahead and let's utilize the chat. Let's give the speakers some appreciation. Let's give them some love and show them that we're excited to hear from them and we're grateful for them to be here. I also want to thank Tara, our sign language interpreter, for making the time to be here as well to make sure this is an inclusive event. So my name's Cole and I'll be moderating tonight. I'm a proud Matador, class of 2015, with a major in business management and a minor in geography. I was a pretty active student on campus and now I'm a pretty active alumnus. I'm currently a senior consultant at Deloitte doing strategy and people strategy work in big tech. Now tonight, we're here to talk about emerging careers in the social and behavioral sciences. Like I mentioned, we have some incredible speakers who are going to share their experiences over the next 90 minutes. Our goal for today is 1, inspire you to explore areas in this field. 2, expose you to the types of careers out in this field. And 3, provide you with some of the resources to help you land the job that you want in this field. So before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping. 1, obviously we can't see you and you can't see each other, but you do get to see us. So you can't chime in and speak up, but what you can do is utilize the chat. So I'm seeing some good interaction there. And that's also so helpful for us as panelists and as speakers, because we want to engage with you and it makes it a little bit easier for us to tailor the conversation. So one thing that we found is really helpful is utilizing +1. So all you have to do is type +1 in the chat when you agree with something, or you want to acknowledge that you heard it and you're aligned with that. So that's a great way to just quickly do that so we can make sure we're on track and we see what's resonating with you. Secondly, in real time, if you have any questions at all, or if you want someone to go a little bit deeper in what they're talking about, please say so in the chat. That way we can make sure that you're getting the most out of this. A little bit of the run of show. So we've prepared a few questions for the speakers to respond to. But after that, we'll open it up for all of you to ask questions and we'll answer questions in real time. We saw some of your questions ahead of time, so thank you so much, but we weren't able to integrate all of them. So please, let's utilize that chat to answer any questions that do come up. So without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about our speakers. Ashley Du, from a travel blogger turned GIS professional. Ashley Du has been an advocate for helping folks build their network and grow as professionals. She has been with Esri for 3 years and helped co-found ECOS, the Sustainability Employee Resource Group at Esri. She believes learning about the world and different cultures is an important way to grow personally and professionally. Megan Gohill. Megan is a marketing analyst at Fender's Guitars. Prior to this, he worked in the concert industry as a marketing analyst for Live Nation and Ticketmaster. He received a master's of science degree in geography at CSUN, and prior to that, a Master of Arts in Media Communication at Webster University. As an undergrad, he graduated from Washington University in St. Louis with a double major in political science and history. Jocelyn Partida. Jocelyn is an LA native who saw the social media industry explode soon after receiving her bachelor's from CSUN. She then applied her knowledge as a business marketing manager towards a career as a social media strategist. She currently manages various high-end, eco-friendly, and health and wellness social media brands. Mike Kazamanian. Mike leads a team of medical usability researchers and serves as a university lecturer. He provides expertise in the areas of human factors and technology application. He holds an MA degree in human factors, applied psychology, and is a certified quality function deployment green belt. Wow, those are some interesting backgrounds. From health and wellness, social media strategy, to GIS professionals. We're covering a lot of ground here. So now let's open it up for the speakers to quickly introduce themselves. Ashley, do you want to kick us off?
Sounds good. Thanks, Cole. Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Du. My pronouns are she, her, and I graduated from CSUN with degrees in journalism and geographic information systems. And I was pretty involved working at the USU and student housing during my time there. I'm a product engineer and multimedia specialist at Esri, and I'm really excited to be here to share and learn from everyone.
All right, Megan, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Megan Gohill. I work at Fender Musical Instrument Company. Prior to this, I was at Live Nation and Ticketmaster. I've spent most of my working career in the concerts industry as an analyst. So I go through and figure out who's going to concerts or who's buying guitars now or things like that. At CSUN, I explored geography with the purpose of being able to map out where our customers were. That's what I got.
Thank you. Mike?
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I currently teach at Cal State Northridge and the upper division psychology level, and I also lead a group of usability engineers, and we're all local, and we hire mostly CSUN graduates, and I'm sort of a jack of all trades, background in robotics and engineering and machining, and here I am in psychology, applying what we learned there to the design of technology. And in a nutshell, part of my job now is to make things easier to use, whether it's a medical product or an accessory to an iPad. And so I'm all about connecting working professionals together. I'm very happy that each of you are here doing the right thing to create that network. And I'm also interested in learning from you, your questions, and the other panelists here.
Thank you. And Jocelyn?
Hi everyone. My name is Jocelyn, and I'm super excited to be here to share my journey as a social media strategist with my fellow Matadors. It's always so nice to be around fellow Matadors, so I'm excited to be here. I am a 2016 graduate, and I was heavily involved in AS as a senator. And I currently sit on the board of directors for the Alumni Association. So I wanted to really continue my relationship with CSUN as much as possible. And in a nutshell, I really help overwhelmed business owners strategize their social media presence. So a lot of them know it's important, but they're not sure how to go about it. And that's where I come in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we'll dive into some questions, and feel free to answer in whatever order y'all see fit. So the first one we want to know is, what do you love about what you do?
I can go ahead and start us off, Cole. What do we love? What do I love about social media and the world? So one of the my favorite parts about social media is that it's social. So you are connecting with an audience, and although it is behind a screen, you are still connecting with them and you're building relationships. And to play off of my psychology degree and my psychology minor, you really could see how to sell to individuals via social media. It's still selling and you're still connecting with a target audience, but you have to approach it in a very unique way, because it's not in person and there's a screen between you two, but it's very rewarding, and it's amazing when you're able to connect and you're able to build an audience. And the key is to build an audience, and then the sales come in after that. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts, is that building a community that is like yours. We all have a community and we all belong to communities. And this is just another way to really connect with them on a consistent basis. You can just pull out your phone, send a DM, or connect with them. And I think that's amazing.
I definitely second that. And speaking of building community, as a product engineer and multimedia specialist at my company, I also love being able to build community, being able to partner with so many organizations, from nonprofits to federal organizations like the EPA or all kinds of different orgs. But yeah, just building those relationships and learning about what organizations are currently doing with our products at my company at Esri. It's been such a great learning experience overall.
The way I would like to chime in for this question has to do with, first of all, I agree with everyone's thoughts in terms of making connections. What I love about my job is that I'm a user advocate. And so I represent the needs of it could be the average lay user, or it could be a heart surgeon. But when I'm in a room full of market research folks, engineers, quality folks, it's my job to be the voice of the customer. And so after interviewing dozens and dozens of folks, I come back to the, let's just say, design team and have to represent their needs, whether it's accessibility or customer satisfaction, or something a little more hardcore, such as making a product safe enough to use so that somebody doesn't get hurt. But being a user advocate is one of the best parts of my job.
As a marketing analyst, I love being able to figure out what makes people pick up an instrument, play it, how to get instruments, how to let people know that, hey, these instruments are available. When I was at the concert company, I love being able to tell people about concerts that are coming up, figuring out, would this person be interested in going to a concert? How do we get the word out to people? How do we make this whole music thing happen in ways that are good in the general community?
Excellent. Second question. Did your younger self think that you would be here now? Has your career taken any interesting turns?
I'll take that one. I've taken a lot of interesting turns. As an undergraduate, I thought I was planning on going pre-law to start with. But at night, I was running sound. I was mixing different bands at different clubs around St. Louis. I decided then to shift careers and try to do something with audio engineering. So I went to Webster, looked for job, and I started looking for jobs in studios. There weren't any jobs doing music, and one of the owners of the studio asked me, "Do you want to do music or do you want to do commercials?" And I said, "I want to do music." He said, "Okay, if you want to do music, go talk to the concert promoter in town." And that got me derailed in the best way possible. I started working with the concert promoter as an intern. Eventually got the position as an administrative assistant, and I seem to have a knack for organizing things. So I eventually started doing data and organizing the data and then analyzing the data. Eventually, we got bought by a company called SFX Entertainment, and they moved me out to Burbank, which is why I'm here in California. If you would have asked me, my younger self, do you think you'd be living in California? Wasn't even a blip on my radar at the time.
To be honest, childhood me probably would be really confused about what I do currently. I also took different routes, even in undergrad at CSUN. I started in film. I was on the track to the film school there, and I decided, I really love writing, and I transitioned over to the journalism school. And within that time of being like a journalist, there was a requirement then to take 15 units of anything. And so I was like, okay, what is GIS? Let me try it out. I'll take one class, and it just changed the entire trajectory of my life. I fell in love with the subject and grew a whole network there, and ended up adding that into my, my path. And yeah, there's just so much that in the geography world that I didn't know about, and I'm still learning about it. So yeah, no, I would have had no idea.
I think in general, it's pretty likely that most folks, as their younger selves, will never have expected to do what they are doing today. And I think that's the normal path. The journey I went through, which I think was kind of interesting, it has to do with the fact that I always thought I would be an engineer. I'm an engineer at heart. I was a machinist, roboticist. I worked on special effects and mechanical effects for things that you might even see in commercials. Something appeared in the Super Bowl about 10 years ago. That's fresh on my mind. But when I was going to school, I was taking general education courses, and psychology was interesting to me. I didn't think I would be good in that sector. In fact, I earned a C in my first class, but it was engaging. And I thought this might be the path that is least taken. So I would compare myself to, let's just say, my parents or other working professionals, and I thought of them as working in a cube, and I didn't want to be that person. So I tried something unique. And by the time I was at CSUN, I talked to an advisor, said, I'm an engineer at heart. Here I am as a psychology major. What should I do? And he said, you know what? There's this class you should take called Human Factor Psychology. And once I took that class, it was this aha moment. And from that point forward, I was just motivated to do it. But as my younger self at that point in time, I had no clue what I would be doing. And so two of my professors started a consulting gig for a local organization, and they invited me to the party, and I joined them for the ride, and here I am running the organization now. And the best part is my colleagues. They're so much fun to be with. You know, you're spending so much time with them. But if someone said, did you want to work as a usability specialist in the medical sector? I always said, first of all, I didn't know that existed. Second of all, I always thought I was going to be tinkering with robots, so to speak. So the journey is very interesting, and it's fun, and I think it's all about making the best of the opportunities available to you, rather than trying to find that perfect opportunity and pursue it as if the grass is greener on the other side. Is go with the flow and make the best of it and have fun along the way.
Yeah, flexibility is really important when you're in your career.
Love it. Seeing a lot of +1s come in there. All right. Any other ads before we move on to the next question? All right. What has significantly impacted your career? Think classes, people, prior experiences, or anything in between.
Maybe I'd like to chime in first this time. There's a lot of overlap in these questions, and I think something that was interesting for me, and this is something I absolutely love about CSUN, the professors there are very down to earth. And so you are graduates and you probably have jobs now, but CSUN still provides you access to these working professionals. In fact, I believe half the value of a university system is access to these folks. And we're all looking for that mentor. And there's this, I don't know, is it a meme or something going around social media where there's this card that is old and dirty and ugly looking, and in the wrong context, it has no value, but in the correct context, it's kind of like a diamond in the rough and is worth a lot. I think you as an individual could be that diamond in the rough if you're paired up with the right mentor. And so I think that's what significantly impacted my career, finding that mentor that is willing to take me under their wings and see the value in me. And it's not because other mentors or potential mentors didn't see the value, it's just the opportunity didn't line up. And so I think it's important to keep trying until you do find that mentor that's willing to take you under their wings. And so that's, I think, a big turning point for me.
One thing I concur with that at CSUN. One thing I loved when I was getting my master's was how approachable the professors were, and that directly impacted my work. A lot of times I would get advice from them in terms of, from a geography perspective, in terms of like how to approach a particular problem that I was doing. And they had a great combination there of real world experience and just being in the office, keeping office hours, that made it really, really useful. A lot of the professors I worked with were really awesome as far as their subject matter and their knowledge of subject matter and their ability to explain things. I took classes with Dr. Graves and Dr. Moss and Dr. Crane in the geography department, and they all really helped me to focus how to drive the math part of my of the analysis of the analytics that I do.
Maybe one more thing I could add. I'm sorry. we talk about the academic situation where you have a graduate degree and whatnot. And something that I find is really cool is that even if you're maybe a hospitality worker in the restaurant sector, those types of things contribute in ways you never thought would be important. So for example, part of my profession has to do with interviewing individuals and soliciting feedback. And it just so happens if you were a restaurant worker, you attain those skills. If someone is nervous, you know how to calm them down. If someone is asleep, you know how to wake them up. And so you never know which one of your hobbies or things that you've experienced well outside of school can contribute to your career. And so I think that's a big part of making you a well-rounded professional. And so I would say emphasize some of those things and try to fold them into how it could apply to this new job that you might be interested in.
Agreed, Mike. I also think a really great thing, what I love about CSUN is all of the opportunities there are, like even when you're on campus or off campus, like alumni or current students. What I remember when I was working for the USU or student housing, I learned about all these different opportunities and programs like the CSUN DC Scholar Program. I applied for that, and that also changed my life. I was able to, move to DC for a few months, live there, do an internship, and working there just like that turned me into the travel blogger that I am now sometimes when I'm not working. But yeah, I would say just take advantage of all the resources that CSUN provides, because there are so many that we are not aware of.
Also, your fellow students are great resources to your current classmates. They're going to move into jobs later on, and a lot of times they'll be an excellent contact for you later on if you're looking to switch jobs, or if you're looking to change careers, or even sometimes you guys can synergistically work together. Like one might be a vendor for a company that you work for, or vice versa. So there's a lot to that. I know at Live Nation and Ticketmaster, we hired a lot of CSUN interns. We hired them originally as interns, and I know quite a few of them that turned into full-time jobs later on. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a lot of networking opportunity. A lot of people know each other and they recommend their friends and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to play off what was just shared is that I really used my network, the network that I created during college when I made the transition into social media. I would meet up with sorority sisters that I had connections with, and I knew they had jobs in social media or they were kind of playing in the social media area. I made a point to reach out to them and invite them for coffee or invite them to Starbucks and really just strike up a conversation. And that was really how I started. And I went into my pool, I went into my network, and you have this network for a reason. So reach out to people you see on Instagram, or reach out to people you see on Facebook, or anywhere really, and ask for advice and ask them, hey, could we jump on a quick call? Can I offer you like some coffee, and we can just chat and you can tell me all about your job. I'm interested in maybe going that route, but I'm just not sure yet. So that was incredibly helpful to me. And I really want to say about maybe 75% of the traction I gained was because I was meeting with my fellow graduates and my peers that I met at CSUN.
Love to hear it. So to recap on that question, we heard utilize your network and don't be afraid to ask people for their experiences, for some support or for some advice. We heard don't be afraid to go back to CSUN, even as alumni, because there are so many resources there for you to tap into. And typically professors are so happy to help and are eager to engage with you. And the last thing we heard about was the importance of mentorship. But oftentimes a follow-up on the explanation of mentorship being important is, well, how do I go about finding a mentor? So I'd love to hear from the panelists. How did you get connected with a mentor, if you have one, or any advice that you would have to build that mentor-mentee relationship?
I'll go first. when I've had mentors and ongoing mentors, something that has been very helpful in keeping that relationship going is providing them value. Like, what are they, how are they benefiting from this? Of course, we're benefiting if we're the mentee because we're learning everything, but how are they benefiting? How could we lend a helping hand and really find a mentor that connects with you and that works with, your personality and aligns with your goals, because it'll make it much easier for you both to create a strategy on your next steps, and your weekly meetings will go much sooner. So really finding someone that aligns with your goals and understands them, maybe has been through the exact same position as you have, those similarities go really a long way. I like to think of mentors as a little bit of like that big brother, big sister position, and that's really important, and they can help you go really, really far. So finding someone that your personalities really connect, and that you have the same goal and a strong, solid strategy behind it too.
Plus 100. I definitely also see like it's important to have an advocate, and making, like Jocelyn said, having someone on the same page, someone that wants to in a sense, fight for you, and whether you're trying to move up in your company or they're your reference for, a college application. It's important to find someone that will advocate for you in your goals. So yeah.
It seems like I totally agree with everyone's comments, but I still feel like it's so hard. It feels like I might be on a dating scene and I'm just putting myself out there until I find one that's willing to reciprocate. But the thing I agree with, it has to do with chemistry. I think chemistry is so important. It's not about highlighting your GPA or what you wish to accomplish. It's first and foremost, can you spend time with that mentor, and can you banter with that individual and have similar hobbies and whatnot? And I don't know, one thing I like to think of is starting with your own definition of success. You as an individual, what do you consider to be success? And then find individuals that meet that definition and just hang out with them. You want to be rich? Go hang out with rich people. You will become rich. You might learn you don't like hanging out with those types of personalities. That's up to you. But I think that's one thing I would suggest. The other thing is, don't expect too much of the individuals that you're trying to network with. Just put yourself out there, make that connection, but don't expect something in return. When I'm looking to select a mentee, so to speak, I guess what I'm looking for is whether someone that knows enough about what they're looking for, where they will stick with the program for about a year, where it's worth it. I don't expect them to stay with me forever. In fact, I want that individual to leave the nest and spread their wings. But at least I don't want someone that is going to try and receive information for 3 months and bounce. So I think that 6 to 1 year zone is the sweet spot. Define what you think is successful, spend your time with those folks, and don't expect too much. Put yourself out there as if you're looking for a date or something to that effect.
I was going to answer a question from Jessica that I saw in this chat, and she asked, how do you initiate a mentor relationship? I think the first step would be do your research for sure. Do your research, make sure that's the first step, and reach out the best way possible. The way maybe they have somewhere on their Instagram or on their website that says how to reach out to them. Like, reach out to them, follow through, and let them know, hey, if I'll follow back up in a week or two, or just to let them know that, hey, I'm super serious. I'd love to have this conversation, and you could move forward, and then do follow up and maybe support them in something that they have going on. I'm sure that would stand out from everyone else sending emails too. But that was a great question. Thanks, Jessica.
Excellent. Thank you. And I want to plug a resource that CSUN has, and that's Ask a Matador. on the CSUN website, go ahead and, if you Google Ask a Matador, you can go in and ask questions, and they'll try to pair you with someone that is in a good spot to help support you with that question. So there's a number of resources that the CSUN has at your disposal if you go and utilize them. And a big plus one from my perspective to what Jocelyn was saying about mentorship, I used to do 1 or 2 20-minute coffee chats a week, and just random people that I didn't know, I'd find them on LinkedIn or find them through the university and just ask them about what they love doing. And people typically love to talk about what they spend their time on, and they love to see people get excited. And, I went through a number of those, and maybe 20 in, I really connected with somebody, and they're still a really important figure in my life that I talk with regularly. So it does take some legwork. And just like Jocelyn said, show up prepared and engaged, and like Mike said as well, but it does have a lot of really strong benefits. I've seen them, and all the other panelists have just spoken to that as well. So we'll take a little bit of a turn here, and let's get a little bit tactical. What are some of the most important skills to break into your field or your position or your industry?
So as an analyst, the big skills that I would recommend CSUN students take advantage of. There's some data programs that are really good to get, that you can train on for free as a CSUN student. So first one is Tableau. Tableau is a great program which allows you to give presentations to people and crunch large data sets and present them in a way that an executive can understand it. The second program that I'd recommend is called Alteryx. Alteryx is a program that lets you crunch a lot of numbers, generate things like maps, as well as tables, and move data merge data from a lot of different data sets together. You'll find that very useful as far as job opportunities out there. A lot of companies like Sony and KPMG and a lot of other companies are looking for people that are social science people, but are also familiar with these kind of number crunching programs. The other ones to be familiar with are going to be programs like Illustrator and Photoshop, or any kind of design programs, things that you can use to make your presentations good. As far as presentations go, that's the other thing. Work on your presentation skills. And by presentation, it's things like if you have to present some data points, figure out how to, if you have a big data set, figure out how to distill it down to 3 major points, put up nice big pictures so everybody can understand it just by looking at the pictures. Those are the big things that I'd recommend as far as skill sets to develop.
Definitely want to encourage and add on to having great design skills can help you in any field. I was lucky to have taken, some Adobe Illustrator courses in my GIS classes. Mm-hmm. And, that really has evolved into my career, and it's helped me throughout projects that I worked on.
Did you take yours with Dave Dice by any chance?
Yes, I did.
He's awesome.
Yeah. He actually helped me with my resume.
Nice.
Because I made it in Illustrator. Anyway, I would also recommend dabbling, or not just dabbling, but learning the basics, or just understanding what programming languages like Python. Python is a very important one that a lot of people utilize today. And project management is very important also in multiple fields, not just ours. Just being able to organize and take a team and lead them on their way to having a successful end product or project is huge. And also communication, being able to have conflict resolution, whether it's within your team or even with people that are users for your products. It's huge to have those communication skills.
The other big programs to also do are Excel and PowerPoint. Get familiar with the Microsoft programs and Microsoft Power BI. That's the other big one.
I heard 2 tools that I would highly, highly recommend, and I want to build off of the Microsoft one. It sounds boring, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and everyone thinks they know it. But I promise you, maybe even it's unique to my role, you could spend 2-3 years working that tool, and there are still tricks and bugs that you wish you knew. And it's not until you have an 80-page document, it's due in 30 minutes and it's crashing on you, or it's bugging out, or you want it to behave a certain way, and it really matters. And so just knowing some of the tricks on how to make something flexible. For example, if you want to create spaces, you could cheat by doing line breaks, but then if someone manipulates something up front, it screws everything up. And so the trick there is to include a page break. But those little things make a big difference in terms of, getting it done. The other one I heard is project management, and I know that sounds cliche as well, but I don't know, having the right self-discipline and having realistic timelines with contingencies and buffers, and dealing with human needs, weekends and family time and stuff like that. That's a real skill in terms of being able to anticipate those things. So those are two boring tools. But within my profession, in terms of behavioral research and being a usability engineer, so to speak, I look for a couple of other things that are pretty fundamental to the social science domain. And that is basic research methods. Can you design a true experiment? Sure, in the real world, you're not conducting true experiments, but you're doing some kind of derivative version of it, or you might come across something and be able to speak to it. So I would say research methods, qualitative research methods are also really important. In the social sciences, you hear statistics so much, quantitative approaches. But I find that the qualitative approach, where you're taking someone's opinion and trying to translate that into some kind of operational definition or objective outcome, is a skill. It's an art. It's like, can you define love? It's a very qualitative thing, but sometimes you have to. And you have to turn that into a user requirement or a need that an engineer could act on. And I don't know, maybe the other thing I'll add is, and I don't know if there's a class for it, is high emotional IQ. I think it's just, maybe it takes some practice for some individuals, and other folks it's natural. But doing things like, I don't know, putting yourself out there, and if someone scratches their head and they say, I don't understand what you just said, then you change your approach next time you explain that same thing, in terms of trying to be empathetic to the person in front of you or whatnot. But I think 80% of the skills, regardless of what domain you're in, will translate to any job. Yes, there's that 20% unique variance for some of the tools you heard today. And those are really, really important, but you got to nail that 80%. So I don't know, that was my perspective on that.
Yeah, translating things into actionable, into things that people can understand, whether it's qual or quant, is critical for success in most businesses. The ability to explain.
Yeah, some of the resources that I use on an ongoing basis would be some editing softwares or Canva. Has anybody heard of Canva? Drop it in the chat if you guys have. Hopefully you have. So it's like the best. Okay, perfect. I see a one. Yes, more ones coming our way. Research methods, of course. Well, Canva is like your one and done, one-stop shop. It removes so many headaches, and it's easy for you to get started. Sometimes we're not sure how to get started, and Canva is it has templates for everything, anything and everything, and it's already sized. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, like anything and everything. I cannot stress Canva enough. Some other really good ones for social media would be Splice. Splice is a video editing app. Very user-friendly. You could add the transitions that you see on TikTok and on Instagram. So it's all on Splice. You can also add the text to your video directly on Splice, and it mimics the style that Instagram and TikTok uses. So you could upload a edited video onto those platforms that look like they were edited in the platforms, but they weren't edited. They were edited using Splice. There's music. There's just about anything you need to edit a video in Splice. Hootsuite and Later.com are both, they are scheduling tools for your content. So if you need to upload something, but you need to upload it later, or just to get your content calendar ready, those two are great go-tos. And I'll drop them in the chat just for everybody to refer back to them. And something else that is incredibly important would be KPIs. So what's working, what's not working, looking at the numbers, going back to the research phase, and really digging deep into how are you going to create content moving forward, or what is your audience connecting with? What message are they really picking up on? And that's where key performance indicators really play a role in creating the content for you, because you're analyzing them.
+1 to KPIs. Also, I'm still learning about this currently in my role, but SEOs, search engine optimizations, that is something that so many companies are utilizing just to understand their quality and quantity of their website traffic. It's a really big part of what people should understand too.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing those tools and those skills. I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper. And how would you recommend that people attending this webinar build those skills or gain those skills? Or how did you gain those skills prior to you utilizing them at work?
I had a weird one where a person in a band that I was playing with was really good with analytics and software. And so after band practice, he would sit there and teach me how to do programming and how to do basic analysis and things like that. And that kind of got my head into that numbers space. And then later on, just going to CSUN was really helpful, like in terms of all the opportunities of meeting with professors that knew how to explain things very well.
So, I mean, what I said earlier about taking classes at CSUN, a lot of the design skills I learned were in college. And even now, I wish I had the resources that there are now with Coursera and Skillshare. I'm trying to remember all of those different websites that offer free or discounted or trials for classes. Those are really great options to learn new skills.
Also, for those of you that are at CSUN, Dr. Crane in the geography department teaches a couple of classes that are I've found extremely useful in my day-to-day work. They're both on. One of them was on map making, and the other one was some design. Like I forgot the exact title, but it was a business design class.
I don't know. I think exposing yourself, I guess you will learn on the job, and it's all about whether you have that aptitude. So I think one thing I want to emphasize is it's not just a career or job. One that makes you happy requires passion, and it ends up being a lifestyle. And so I find a lot of my colleagues that really enjoy the work we do during lunchtime debate about it. During their free time, experiment with new things that they learn, and they bring it back to the group, and then we learn from each other. So I think learning these tools and skills comes with the lifestyle of being in that profession, so to speak. So I imagine, Megan, I don't know if this is true. Do you play an instrument? Well, probably. It's part of your lifestyle. And so I'm a nerd, and I'll debate proper research methods, or was that causation or correlation, and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I got my skills. In terms of design tools, that translates really well. You learn one design tool, and that general approach works on just about every other design tool. So learn at least one design tool, maybe not that specific one for that particular job. Maybe it's too expensive. but just tinker with it. I guess one more thing I'll add is I'm not a graphic designer. I don't even think I have a good eye for design, but I could tinker with images. And what I did when I was younger is I would manipulate people's images into funny little things, and I would send it to them. And I learned from that. Or even with audio, I would record someone's voice and I would change the clips to make it sound like things they never actually said. And that was fun for me, but now I know how to do audio editing as a result. So I think it's just have fun with it.
If you enjoy doing what you're doing, you're going to do it well. You know, you're going to figure out how, even if you don't know right away how to do it, you will figure out how to get better at it.
Yeah, and something that really helps would just like, I mean, we all graduated college or in college, and continuing your education, that's very important. Ongoing, like I'll go to seminars, I will attend events like this. This is already a good indicator that you guys care about your future. So continuing this and having it, keep it going, and maybe strategize it a little bit more. So make sure you have the events on your calendar so you don't forget or you're on time. And when you go to like networking events, make sure that when you're networking, you show up a little earlier to network a little, with everybody as much as possible, and continuing to educate yourself. That's always very, very important.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing your answers to that. The next question I have for you all is, what are some of the interesting roles and positions you're seeing within your industry or within your organization or within your communities?
A role that I'm seeing consistently and even getting ads for some reason to go to school for is data scientists. If you were to ask me how to explain that to you, explain to you what that is, I can't because there's so many different kinds, whether it's analyzing data, spatial analysis. I mean, like I said, using Python and algorithms. I mean, there's a lot that just, goes over my head. Some of it at least, but yeah, it's a growing role, and I see it a lot in at least the geography GIS world myself.
I'll second that, and I'll also say, like at our marketing department, we do a lot of analytics, but the other half is writing, good creative writing that's easy for people to read. That is one of the most sought after skills, the ability to easily explain complex concepts to anybody. Those are the big ones.
Something I see as interesting within my domain, the umbrella term is human factors. It's synonymous with ergonomics. And as an umbrella term, that term gets used within jobs where it's not yet very mature. But what I find is in other domains where that same profession has matured following an arc, they come up with specialties, such as a user experience researcher or a user interaction designer. And so I think as part of emerging careers, some of those buzzwords are indicative of how that role or that profession within that domain is becoming specialized. And something I see as interesting that might not be applicable to you now, but I thought it was interesting. At the C-suite level, there is a position I'm seeing called Chief Interaction Officer. I'm like, what is that? Why do you have to rub elbows with COOs to be user experience professional? But it just speaks to how this profession is growing to all levels. And so I think one of the things I do with my current students, one of the first activities I have them do is do a job search for this domain. Why? Because you get to learn what jargon people are using, how they're describing these roles. And it's not necessarily about finding a job, but it's figuring out how people define them, and maybe some of the new spin-offs that might be of interest to you as an emerging opportunity. Sometimes they're looking for purple unicorns, and you'll see a job description and that you say, it's impossible to fill that role. A buddy of mine shared an interesting story. He said, I interviewed at a job and they wanted all these things. And I spent my interview, not me, my buddy said this, he spent his interview educating them on what the job should be. And then he got that job as defined by what his desires were. So he was telling the interviewer what the job should be and got that job because they were not defining it correctly. I guess one more thing I want to share has to do with, oh geez, I think I lost my train of thought here. Yeah, I think I'll pause there.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that storytelling, just like it was mentioned previously, and community building have really expanded. Social media has gone from, hey, just post about us, just make sure we post. And now there has to be a strategy. But why do we have a strategy? Well, because we're trying to tell a story in order for our audience to really connect with us. We want our audience to feel like they know us and build a community around that. And so there are positions for people to just engage. You're just going to engage, and that's all you're going to do. And that's important, because when we leave a comment somewhere, think about the last time you left a comment and a business commented back or liked your post. You feel a little special, and you're like, oh my God, they saw my post. And that builds that connection even more. And that creates that relationship, that bonds that relationship. So even having someone to just comment back or like back a comment, that's very important. So social media has definitely grown in the last couple of years, and it will only keep growing to fit every single angle within the industry.
All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into the jobs and the career aspects of the webinar. So where should people look for jobs coming out of a social or behavioral science program?
The big thing I would say is don't limit yourself. There's a lot of companies where, the obvious is like, there's always, Deloitte and Touche or Ernst & Young and all that. But you're in Los Angeles. You're in one of the biggest cities in the world. There's companies everywhere that are looking to hire people. Some are big companies, some are small companies. At Fender, a lot of people think, well, I've got a psychology degree or I've got, a physics degree. Why shouldn't you look at Fender? It's a great company. Or Live Nation. I worked with a lot of people that had journalism majors that ended up being, they ended up in marketing. A lot of sociology behaviors, things that you'll do in sociology classes, like taking surveys and all that. A lot of those translate directly into jobs all over LA. Walt Disney, Sony Pictures, CSAC, ASCAP, Warner Brothers, a lot of those bigger companies, as well as a lot of mom and pop operations.
Even on LinkedIn, I have seen so many different kinds of roles. And when I see a role, I'll look it up in jobs and see I'll go to Worldwide and I will see so many different job postings with that same role or similar to it, and understanding what are the requirements or just the skills that are needed for roles that in there. So that's a big one for me that I've done in the past.
Definitely LinkedIn for my profession. I find that not only is it current, but a lot of this job search engines are like meta search engines, like Indeed, and they're collating stuff. But I'll see stuff on LinkedIn that's not on some of those platforms. So at least for my background, LinkedIn. But the one thing that I remember now when I lost my train of thought, don't limit yourself to advertised positions. A lot of times, it's my belief, they're advertising a position for something that they're having trouble filling, but they're still interested in a lot of job roles that you might be great for, but they're just not advertising it because they have a lot of candidates. So the example is maybe a more junior level role, and you're like, oh my goodness, they're only looking for someone with 20 years experience, and that's not possible. Well, they're advertising for that because they can't find it, but they're probably still interested in folks who have fewer years of experience, they're just not advertising because they'll get way too many applications. So I think getting your foot in the door through those other avenues is really important, whatever they might be. I don't know how I got my foot in the door as a, let's just say, junior person. It was all the things we heard from the panelists today. So don't be discouraged if you don't see advertisements for something you're interested in. Get your foot in the door using other techniques.
I once, one of our HR people at one of my old companies told me a story where a candidate, somebody called up about the position, about some senior position, and they said, I'm not qualified for that position, but when you hire that person, can you put my name in? And that person ended up with the job as the assistant for the person that got hired. So I thought it was a creative way to get in.
When I would look at job postings, I used to think that if I didn't have every single requirement or skill that was listed, that I wasn't qualified enough for it. But I've learned now that you don't have to have everything listed on there. There's always time to grow your skills, even if you apply for that job. So apply for that job.
Yeah. HR, a lot of times they'll put down the requirements because that's what they think they need to do, or they might take the requirements that the last guy had in that position, but those might not be exactly the requirements. They want somebody that's a good fit, not necessarily that you check every box, like you're saying. It's like you don't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be this person's good with analyzing things. They know some software. It might not be the software that we use, but they're good with software and they can probably pick it up. A lot of times the person that's a good fit is actually the person that fits personality-wise with the other people at the company.
Exactly.
And to chime in on that, I mean, we all have a very strong network because we want to see sun. And asking your peers, connecting with your peers, that has taken me so far. And I'm just so grateful for the network that that CSUN helped me build. And people post jobs everywhere. They share it with their colleagues and like, hey, are you looking? Somebody just opened a position opened up. I think you'd be perfect for that. And those conversations happen all the time. So ensuring that you're connecting with your friends and your network and sharing what you're into. So when that opportunity comes up, your name is the first name that they're gonna think of. They're gonna send you a quick DM or they're gonna send you a quick text and they're gonna reach out. Also, definitely the limiting beliefs. Yes, that was so true. There's been so many times where, and I'm sure we've all seen them when we're on Instagram story and we see like a job posting that says, hey, my job is hiring X, Y, and Z. If anybody wants more info here, email this, email my manager. That is a job posting in of itself. If I was interested, I would DM, or if somebody's saying, hey, I'm looking for a social media strategist, send me their Instagram ads. I love it when my friends send me those because that's amazing. That means, hey, they know what I'm all about and they know what my career is about and they're helping me. And I want to help them too. So you look out for each other and look out for your CSUN community. That goes a very, very long way.
There's another little trick to use is a lot of companies will pay their employees a finder's fee if they find somebody to work with. So if you see a position at a company where you know one of your alumni or one of your fellow classmates, reach out to them and ask, can I put you down as a reference in there? Because a lot of times they'll get a little finder's fee for that, and they'll put in a word for you or you can use their name on the application as you're filling it out. That'll help push you to the top as well.
Megan, I'd like to add to that. I not only agree with that, but it reminded me when I'm looking for new employees, I don't advertise. First of all, I don't want to deal with all the applications, but second of all, you just reminded me. I ask my current employees, hey, you know our culture. Who do you think would be a good fit? Because that's a intangible thing. It's hard to assess that real quickly. And so the referral mechanism is the most powerful one. And I want to share a really quick story about one of my former students. And the idea here is it's not about your academic performance. It's not about your test taking skills. Let's say I had 5 individuals that asked me for advice. Hey, how do I get an internship? And I would point them in a particular direction. There's this one individual, not a top performer at all. I gave him advice. they acted on it. And I was so surprised. 2 weeks later, when I talked to them, I'm like, yeah, I already followed through on that and whatever. And they were humble. They didn't expect anything of me, but they acted on my advice. And I said, I want that person. They have follow through. They weren't the best performer, but this person ended up being one of the best hires I've ever had perfect chemistry. So there are intangible things that get communicated. That is part of the chemistry, and they're little tells. If you're sending an email to someone, and I'm pretty sure everyone here knows, within the first 5 words, you already know whether you like that person's communication style. And so just the first 2 sentences in your email are very telling of whether or not that person wants to have further correspondence with you. And so that's another way to get your foot in the door, I suppose, is being careful about the way you compose yourself, those first several interactions.
Beautiful. We're going to kick it over to some questions that have come in both ahead of time in the registration and through the chats. And the first one is, what are good questions I should ask if I land an interview?
I've got a few. So one of the things about an interview that's tricky is they're asking you questions, you're answering, you're just doing all the talking. So what you want to do is you want to flip that. You want to ask the interviewer some questions so they actually have a chance to talk. So what are some good questions? One thing that can be really cool for the interviewer is to ask them, what are some upcoming projects you're looking forward to that you're working on at work? How does your department interface with the rest of the company? What are the pieces, let's say you're interviewing for something in the graphics department, you might ask a question like, who sends you the request and how does that work? What's the usual process like? And another question to ask them is, what are your department's strengths and weaknesses? Where do you guys excel at? And what are some holes you need to fill? Questions like that will get the interviewer talking, and it will get they will feel much more connected to you because they get to talk about what their issues are and what they feel works, and that's a really powerful interview technique.
Megan, you took mine.
Oh. Sorry.
I plus one to all of that, and like Megan said, understanding what the challenges the organization is facing currently, because you could help solve them. They don't even know it. Also, another one is asking, what are you looking for an ideal candidate for this position, or just being on the team itself or at this company. But yeah, those are a few I have.
The other thing about asking questions at the interview is if you do end up getting the job, you then have a much better feel going into it as far as what your next, as far as like how to interact with everybody. You'll get a feeling of where the department tensions are and also where the department excels at, and that's going to help you to be very effective as an intern and as an employee later on.
One thing. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mike. One of the questions I always like to ask is, what is it? Who will be supportive? Who is a supporting role for this potential position? So let's say you get the job, or then you have an idea. Okay, this is my job, but this executive will help support me, or this executive will help support me. That way, hey, you want to know who you're going to be working right next to. So that's always been very helpful.
Yeah, who all is on the team and what are their strengths? That's always a good one. What do they excel at, and how do they interact with each other?
I think both Jocelyn and Megan, you hit the nail on the head in terms of what I was about to share. I think there's so much focus on what the company does, their name, their products. And I kind of want to say, forget that. I think when you're being interviewed, you want to suss out who's going to be your tight team. Who are you going to be working under? who are you going to be rubbing elbows with on a daily basis? Because you could work for an awesome company, but have a team that, quite frankly, is no fun to be with, and you're going to be miserable. But the opposite could be true too. It could be a no-name company that has a bad reputation, but you're with an awesome team, and you're going to be happy for a long time to come. So it's not just, are you working, can you during the interview figure out if you're going to be part of the cool crowd or the fun team, but are you going to be serving under someone that could teach you something? And also, importantly, if you're ambitious about climbing up the ranks, you want to be associated with a boss that is also going to climb, because they will pull you with them. But if you end up working for a supervisor that is stagnant, you're going to unfortunately remain stagnant too. And so it's hard to suss this out when you're in the interview. On a little bit of a tangent, I guess I go through interviews all the time when I'm trying to get my new clients. It's my first interaction. I'm trying to land that project, so I'm always in an interview. One thing I always ask in that context is, are you looking for me to execute on whatever you outlined, or would you like me to be an advisor? And you might be surprised to hear that sometimes they want that advisory role, or sometimes they want you to execute. Because if you come in with big ideas that you're going to improve the organization and they're not looking for that, they're going to be like, see you later. We don't want someone rocking the boat. And some people are happy just executing, being provided some kind of framework and want that. And so if your prospective employer says, we've got standard procedures or set of expectations and we need someone to execute, and you're happy to do that, that's awesome too. So I think it's important for you to suss out whether or not you're that individual that is a cog in the wheel, which there's nothing wrong with that, or an individual that is doing more than that.
Such great advice. Switching it over to another question that we had pop up. What's the best way to follow up after having applied to an internship or a job? In other words, how do I present my professional self without seeming desperate to land the position?
That is a good one. And I just went through some business training, so hopefully this helps you as much as possible. Something that that we really focus on is follow up and follow through, just like we kind of mentioned here on this call. So let's say you have an interview at the end of the interview, you could ask them, when can I expect to hear back from the company? That'll let them know, hey, she's watching, you know, she has her stuff going on. And then you can let them know, or you could just follow up. Hey, I'll make sure to reach out on X date and kindly ask for an update. And you can do that. And that's fair. Think about your time too. You want to respect their time, and your time should always be respected. And by you respecting your own time, it'll let we would hope it will let the interviewer know, hey, this person's not playing around. She or he has options and she's taking this seriously. And so I think asking and following up would be great ways to follow up. And you really seem come off as, you know, really respect your time, and you respect their time.
A quick note to that in terms of what Jocelyn said is, I think part of respecting someone's time is communicating during business hours. So if you're sending emails over the weekends, it's kind of like, it's a tell that you're going to be potentially asking questions during dedicated family time. I don't know if that's very helpful, but that's the one little widget I wanted to add about how can you show someone that you're respecting their time. Like if I email a client Friday at 6 p.m., that's kind of rude, and I'm not respecting their time as a professional. I think that's part of the formula there too.
Definitely agreed. Respecting boundaries are super important. And I really loved your comment, Jocelyn, about just understanding and making sure you're respecting everyone's time.
I also have a story that can speak to this. I was really interested in this AI company, and I applied. And what I immediately did was went on LinkedIn, and I found out, okay, who's the hiring manager? Who's the head of HR? It's a startup, so about 300 people. Found the head of HR was connected to an old professor of mine who I had a good relationship with. I messaged that professor and said, hey, I really want this job. I think I'll be good for it. Can you put in a good word for me? That day, the professor messaged the head of HR, and I got an interview the following week.
Wow.
And on top of that,
Nice.
I'm applying for this position to get to know about it a little bit more. Can you spare 20 minutes to chat? And we chatted, and with one of them, I hit it off, and they ended up putting in a good word for me in the company as well. I wasn't expecting that, but it was also a good way for me to understand, is this a good fit? Because at the same time, yes, we're all trying to get that job and we really want the company to like us. But at the same time, you want to like the company, and they should be earning your time and your value as well. So I just wanted to put that in there as well. All right, and then another question coming from the chat. Any insight on the relationship between psychology and the tech career? Is it a logical step to go into a tech position like UX designer or researcher as a psychology major?
I'll take that one 100%. That's exactly the profession that I teach. I have a master's in psychology and I'm in the tech sector. User experience designer researcher is under the umbrella of human factors, and that's what my graduate degree is in. It's not 100% psychology. It's interesting. Some schools, you'll find that profession taught from the engineering department, others in the psychology department. I like to say if you take cognitive psychology and you melt that with systems engineering, you're in the UX sector. UX has a slightly different flavor. It's not 100% human factors, but it's essentially the same thing. So not only is there a direct relationship, but you almost need that. And one of the key reasons is because you're looking at behavior, interaction between the user and the system, whether it's technology or something that follows some kind of workflow and it's not a widget that's considered technology. But 100%, and I'd be happy to give you more feedback if you want to talk to me after this webinar.
All right, at this point, I want to open it up to the panelists. Are there any questions that you think would be beneficial for the audience to hear a response from the other panelists?
Cole, I missed that prompt. Are you asking the panelists to ask questions?
Yeah, do you have a question that you think would be beneficial to answer and that you want to hear from the other panelists?
I definitely do. COVID is difficult. I'm sure you're tired of hearing that, but one of the problems I have, and I don't have the answer to it, is my inbox is just bombarded now. Of course, email was always challenging, but during the past 2 years, I lose track because that's one of the few modes of communications you could do remotely. So I'm curious to know, when you're trying to make that connection with someone and get that job or that new opportunity and you're remote, what are some of the techniques you've used to catch that person's attention?
We use Slack a lot at Fender, and we also did it at Live Nation. And then the other technique that I found works really well for connecting is to do short 5 to 10 minute Zoom meetings. Like instead of doing the half-hour default, that seems to work really well for connecting. But Slack seems to be a great way to chat and put conversations together.
And Megan, does that work only if you have that established relationship? What if it's someone that you don't have an established relationship with? I don't know. Can you do that as part of Slack?
In that case, I would do it through email, and then usually figure out what the best way is. But I'll usually try to do like a short Zoom call, because that can usually answer a lot of questions without a lot of back and forth. Like 5-10 minute call.
I've done the same thing with, coffee, tea chats online for 15 or 20 minutes with someone outside of my network or within it. Even on our team, we'll have, after hours, if people are comfortable, having an online call and just not talking about work and just talking about fun things. I'm just kidding. Work is fun.
At Fender, we have what they call coffee breaks, which are Zoom meetings, and everybody gets together, and then you break out into like into groups of 2 to 3 people, and they'll give you a prompt question, but you end up talking to people throughout the company. That's a really fun. Every couple of weeks we do one of those.
There's this website called Gather, and it has like this video game interface of Zoom where you're like your little character just goes through like different spaces, and once you're near someone, the closer proximity you can hear them, and if you walk away you can't. And that has been a really fun way of changing up the Zoom environment or Teams environment. It's been really fun to utilize that.
Does anyone go old school and just dial them up with a phone? Does that work? I think it's so old school now that it might be a unique way to get a hold of someone. I don't know. That's the only alternative I have. If it's too many emails, or I think that email is lost, I'll just call them. I'll find, and in fact, most emails, they'll include the phone number in the signature, and that's the invitation to dial them by that number. That's a other alternative I could think of in terms of connecting with someone that isn't necessarily on the a common social platform.
Yeah, the other one is texting them too. Like I have a couple of vendors that I'll text with just because it's faster to text than to call and go through the phone tree and all that.
Even if you're not close to someone, like they're not your best friend, it is nice when you check in with people, whether it's through an Instagram message or a text message or even on LinkedIn, just checking in and seeing how they're doing. I think people really appreciate that as well, if you want to like build your network that way.
Lovely. At this point, I want to open it up to the panelists to share about a minute or so of any career advice that you would have for the people here.
So I have 3 big ones that I always recommend to people. One is to go with your strengths. If you're good at writing and not numbers, focus on the writing part of it. Look for jobs, even if that's where you're strong at. If you're good at organizing things, figure out how you can organize things wherever you're at. If you're good at drawing, figure out how you can help make presentations, but work with your strengths. That's the first thing I'd recommend. Second thing I would recommend is be flexible. Be willing to take detours, try new things, try things that might not seem within your career path, or you might be like, hey, I don't think I'm that interested in it, but I have this opportunity here, and maybe something could come from that. And be willing to explore companies you might not have thought of at first. I never thought about working at a concert company, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad someone recommended that I call the concert company and go in there. And the third big thing I'd recommend is just work on your presentation skills all the time.
Something I've learned and something that's really important to understand is that there's always time for a career shift or change. It doesn't matter where you are in your life. You can always start anew and learn about a completely different field and love it, and not even know that you love it until later in your life. So when you're building those networks and learning about what other people do, and you just see it's so interesting, always ask those questions and just want to move forward with that if you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I actually just saw this question come in from Jeremy, who's asking for advice from all of us for individuals who graduated but weren't able to join labs or internships because of COVID during the final semester. So what's a good way to gain that experience? I think one of the ways is to reach out. I would reach out and ask, hey, can I shadow you during your business day, or can I shadow you, or how can I help you? Maybe they have an event coming up and they could use an extra hand, and that is a great amount of experience there. So I would recommend reaching out, and again, like keeping your network open, or and if you believe your network might not be as large as you'd like it to be, grow it. You could always grow it today. Hey, we're here. We are your network. We could help you grow that. Your CSUN community is your network. We're here to help. And so offer value. What can you share? What is valuable that you could share that would allow you to shadow somebody? That's also a great compliment. Hey, can I shadow you for a day or two? I'm really interested in your field, but the pandemic put a hinder on some of my plans, and maybe this could help me advance in my career, and I'd love to help you, lend a helping hand. So I think that could go a long way.
Yeah, maybe two other little things I would offer is building off of a couple things we heard, and Megan mentioned it. You're in LA. Not only is it a mega metropolitan area, and who knows how many people wish they had access to this talent. Whenever I hear someone say, I can't find that job, or you're in LA. That's one of the assets of being near so many people that it's populous. That's one. But two, this kind of part of my philosophy, I think the age range of the folks we're talking to today, you're at that perfect intersection of creative energy and just enough wisdom to do something really special. A little bit younger, you have a lot of creative energy, maybe not as much wisdom. Later on, a lot of wisdom, not as much creative energy. But that intersection of those two skills right now means you should be doing something magical. So get out of your bubble, get out of your comfort zone in terms of your social environment, and do something new. Remind yourself that you will not have this balance of those two things 10 years from now. There's nothing wrong with that, but just take advantage of this opportunity. Remember what I said? Make the best of the opportunity you have, as opposed to chasing the perfect opportunity.
The other thing to keep in mind that's really cool right now is a lot of the older workforce have retired. So there's a lot of positions. A lot of people are suddenly moving up before they thought they would be able to move up. And there's a lot of positions opening up at the starting level. Don't be afraid to go in at the starting level, and also know that right now the job market is very wide open. A lot of companies are having trouble hiring people, even with great wages and things like that.
Plus one to that.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you so much to all of our panelists for coming out here and sharing some of your wisdom. So all of you out there, if you wouldn't mind, utilize the chat, say something, some words of appreciation, and maybe something you took away, and show the panelists that you appreciate their time today, and that you're walking away with something. And before you go, I'm going to put a little link in the chat. It is a survey, and then about a minute after that, because we would love your feedback, because your feedback helps make these events more successful and more valuable for future participants. So I'll put a link in the chat in just a moment after these thank yous come in. And then after that, I'll put in the chat the best way to contact the panelists. They're graciously opening up themselves to connect with you on LinkedIn or Instagram or by email. So I'll put that in the chat. And then actually Megan is highlighting some opportunities at Fender that I'll post in the chat in just a second.
Yeah, so Fender is, we do have internships that come up regularly. It's every spring, fall, and summer. And I think mid-March, we're going to start interviewing for these internships. The internships are going to be, that they offer, are going to be in PR and communication, social media, digital marketing, and also the digital and product team, which is like web stuff, programming, things like that. So, and Cole will post up the contact for those.
Excellent. Thank you so much for offering that to the group, Megan. And again, thank you so much to our panelists for offering their time tonight and also their future time as a way to connect. So again, please take a moment. I just put a link in the chat to fill out the survey so that we can provide even more value for each of these webinars. And now I'm going to post the best way to get in contact with everyone you saw here, including the CSUN alumni Instagram and the CSUN alumni page. And so a quick shout out. This was hosted by the CSUN Alumni Association. So thank you so much to them and all the people that are volunteering to keep this community and people's careers thriving and pushing forward. We have a number of other webinars that are coming up. So please go check out our website and engage with our social media to see some of the other interesting ones coming up. So just one on April 6th. So keep on the lookout for that. So again, please reach out to what we just put in the chat. I'm going to drop the internship message from Megan in the chat. And yep, if anyone else doesn't have any final words, thank you so much for showing up tonight, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening.